Good evening, and welcome to Lord Gugu's stream. If this is your first time watching the channel, make sure to follow to catch future interviews with cool and funny people like Demi Lardner, who is guesting next week, and subscribe, if you are so inclined, to receive the exclusive Stephen Sondheim Twitch emote. Tonight's performance of Musical Theater is Good, Actually, will run approximately 90 minutes with one intermission, and tonight the role of guest will be played by Mike Mitchell, aka The Spoon Man, aka Mr. Slice. Please take this time to note all emergency exits and silence your cell phones. Unless you're watching the stream on your cell phone. I'll admit the show will probably be less enjoyable on mute, so in that case, go ahead and make sure you have your volume on. I take it back. You can't do anything right, you worthless disembodied voice, you stupid. Now please, enjoy Musical Theater is Good, Actually.
Musical theater, actually, it's good to me. I love all musicals so much. Just take a play and actually, now they sing. Now you've got the magic touch. When Eliza could have danced all night, that was good, actually. When roller skating trains expressed starlight, that was good, actually, too. But actually, what's most good of all is soon you'll echo Gugu's call, for you will find it's plain to see musical theater's good, actually.
Hello. Welcome back, everybody. It's great to be back for another week, special time. Hello to everyone if it's your first time watching. Hello if you're coming back, one of our diehards. Oh, thank you for the bravo, Emilio and Matt. I appreciate that. Go Caps, absolutely. They're going to destroy this team from this other crap city. He's on mute right now, so he can't say anything. I'm just kidding. And without further ado, we're not going to waste any more time here. We're going to, what everybody's here to see, especially me. Let's go. All right. Hang on. I have a whole intro written. Tonight's esteemed guest is podcasting royalty as co-host of everybody's favorite, especially mine, the Doughboys podcast. You also know him from Love on Netflix, The Birthday Boys, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and soon you'll be able to catch him in the big sci-fi blockbuster, The Tomorrow War. Please join me in welcoming the Spoon Man, Mr. Slice, Mike Mitchell. Wait, let me unmute you. Okay, too many windows, and now they can hear you. Hello.
Wow, that was a great intro. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I have these children singing Spoon Man for you. So.
Oh really? Where? Like in the Twitch stream? Is that where?
That's this video I have. It's,
wow!
Wow,
that was. I'm gonna pretend that was specifically for me.
It is. Welcome.
Wow. Thank
Mitch,
you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and to talk theater.
Absolutely, because we can't see it, so we got to talk it.
Mm-hmm.
That's how
it's coming back.
Theater's
coming back, baby.
They're putting dates on schedules and everything. Mm-hmm. It's really happening, and we are very happy about it. So, Mitch, we'll get more into the specifics. Hello to all the chat is going wild.
What's up, chat?
Very nice. Very, very cool to see. Sorry I talked a little shit on Boston. You don't really care about hockey anyway, right?
I'm not a huge hockey fan, and the Celtics have really let me down. But hey, we're not talking about breaking out the brooms for the playoffs in hockey. We want to break out the brooms, dust off Broadway.
That's right.
Bring back the musicals,
the big
baby.
Push brooms with the stagehands
going
across. and somebody's mopping then after. Yeah, you got to do it every show. Somebody's got to do it. So Mitch, you kind of grew up doing theater, right? Is that right, more or less? Or were you a theater kid a bit?
That's right. Yeah, I can tell you my whole.
Well, here let's get into the specifics.
Sure.
I have this whole quiz, and just in case we repeat ourselves, we can keep ourselves on track here.
Yeah.
So I like to start by just, taking your basic temperature here, and just to get our context, and have you choose with which of these. I'm going to give you two statements, and which statement do you agree with more? Okay. Mm-hmm. First statement: musical theater is the pinnacle of human achievement as the purest and most complete synthesis of all art and performance. Wow.
All right, give me the or.
Musical theater is an abomination before God and man and destroying us as a society and human race. Now, which is closer to your opinion, Mitch?
I mean, I'm going to have to go with the first one, honestly. I mean, like, if I'm presented with just those two options, then musical theater is the pinnacle of human existence.
It is, absolutely. I mean, I always say that is my sincere belief. That's sort of my role is to believe that. But I welcome all people onto the show. I've had people say the second answer, including people who, like, do theater.
Wow.
Actually, it's more frequently people who, like, do theater that pick the second option, which might tell you something.
That's very funny. Like professional, like you're talking like Broadway, off-Broadway people, or like
like
people who've been like in the theater scene.
I think my friend Matt Templeton Stagg in the chat here, who has understudied on Broadway, I think he might have said the second option. Because
it's a funny balance of doing anything where like you also grow to hate it in many ways, like the things that annoy you about it. But like I mean, come on, it's great.
Well, and it's like the sort of thing of like what jobs you're getting like around that, and that really can make you quickly cynical about the like business, because you want to be doing any number of things you were trained for that are interesting to you, but like that's not what's out there, kind of, I guess. I don't know.
Of course. I mean, like, you're always critical of the business you're into, right, and you want it to be better. Hey, I get it. I get that side of it, but I mean, I don't want to get into it too early, and I know
now we can. Now we're in the quiz, so all bets are off. We can go.
I won't get into what we're talking about today, but I will say that like the power of like performance and like the power of like celebrating and dance and music, like what we're going to talk about today, like shows how that's important too. I get why it's an important thing. I get why people. It would have been great this last year to be able to go see a Broadway show or a musical. It would have been fantastic. A one-person Broadway show.
Right.
Imagine
say
a ticket to Hamilton if it was just one ticket to Hamilton.
Right. There's just like, well, they could probably like that ticket would. I think you could like in the 9 figures probably you could charge for that ticket, and somebody would. It
would be the golden ticket.
The $100 million ticket.
It would be insane. One ticket to Hamilton.
Right. Well, I think that like just as easily as sort of like the show that we're talking about tonight, how musicals can be such a powerful tool to, convey such a big message that's like you can't just put into words or something. It can just as easily be kind of used for like the opposite thing, like to sort of obscure or distract from or like make palatable. Sure. I always bring up my least favorite movie musical. The longtime viewers know what I'm going to say, especially my wife who's over here. The Greatest Showman. I don't know if you've seen The Greatest Showman or if you have any take on it, but it's this movie that like kind of takes like a bunch of sort of like pop, like dance, like modern sort of like pop, like treacly kind of sounding songs that don't mean anything, and then it makes like this circus, like them doing music video dances to it, and nothing else. You don't see anything else in the circus besides everyone that's in the circus in the center of the ring doing some choreographed number, and then maybe sometimes Zendaya's doing trapeze around. But the real guy that it's based on is a horrible guy, though. And it's like this, and people are like, oh, but I love it. I watch it, and I turn off my brain, and I'm like, okay, but like, he owned slaves. he had like slaves that he would purchase and then like parade out as freak shows in his circus. Like he wasn't a good guy. Like, and the whole thing that's so messed up about it is that the movie tries to be like uplifting, like, oh, us outcasts banding together, but it's like not clear how exactly meaningfully their lives are really improved by him or the circus. And so it's like actually making this master of human exploitation like this big like, oh, he's a good guy, or like this is a wonderful thing he created.
Is it Russell Crowe who's in that movie?
It's Hugh Jackman.
Oh, Hugh Jackman. That's what I meant, anyways. But Hugh Jackman,
the other Les Mis guy. Yeah.
When we went to when we came to Boston, Weiger and I, for my podcast Doughboys, we came to Boston to do a live show, and we were in the North End. I was taking Weiger to Pizzeria Regina, I believe, for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I was very excited to show him Pizzeria Regina, and like it was just packed in the North End. And I was like, something's going on at the Garden. There's got to be something going on at the Garden. It's crazy.
Oh.
And I like stopped someone in the street. I was like, what's happening? They're like, Hugh Jackman. He's performing at the Garden.
No, that's what I'm telling you. This thing is like
it was the lamest to Weiger to be like, there's some cool show going on in Boston tonight, and it was Hugh Jackman.
Because this movie was actually huge. Like, it was critically like torn apart, but like the public was like, wrong. No, we love this. This is the best. And so like, and I hear all the time when I'm like, oh yeah, I love musicals. Or I could tell people that, and they're like, oh, my kids love The Greatest Showman, and I'm like, cool, that's great. I'm like, you're poisoning their minds. No,
oh wow.
I don't say that, but that's what I want to say.
No, you're right. You should say it. In fact, cowardly not to say it. You're doing
right.
The world a disservice.
Cancel me, please.
My question to you is, what is the last great musical? Because I have one in my mind, and now I'm like, oh, we should have picked this to do it for the episode. I'm happy we're doing what we're doing, but to me, the last great musical, I have one in my mind, and I'll tell you after you answer.
Okay. Well, that's a tough call. I think so. First of all, like, I don't necessarily see a lot, especially of the new like big shows. I will say, I do have an answer because I actually even got to see this. I would say it would be Fun Home of the works that I've seen, the Janine Tesori musical. Fun Home, a very powerful show. But I also don't like see a lot. Like, I haven't seen Hadestown or like a lot of these other, or like Waitress, or like some of these other like that are the big shows of now.
You have like a real answer. You got like a real answer.
Right. Okay. What's your joke?
My answer is South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Well, sure. And I mean, that was one of the things that I suggested we could do an episode and we could talk about it, because I think it's a great movie musical. It's wonderful.
I love it. You know what? I'm happy we're doing what we're doing today, but now I'm just thinking about South Park, and I'm like, I love that. It's so good that I wish we were talking about it, because it's great. It's a great musical.
We can still talk about it right here, because I mean, like, I think that movie like really shows that those guys are real. I mean, and also Book of Mormon to a large extent as well, really kind of shows those guys as just being big musical fans, you know?
Yeah.
And that's pretty like, you know, cool to see. And the story I always tell about the South Park movie is, after it released, my personal composer hero, my number one and my one and only, Stephen Sondheim, the greatest, the you know, the GOAT, wrote to them, and probably a telegram because he's very old timey. And he wrote saying that it was the best movie musical he'd seen in years. That it was like his favorite new like movie musical. He just thought it was so, because he's like a very witty and like clever, and he like likes that kind of like the like and subverting like kind of tropes or whatever you want to say. So that was a pretty high compliment. I always tell that story.
Sondheim and I, same page. Right, exactly. Same Heim. I feel the same.
Same Heim.
I love it. It is true.
La Resistance is wonderful. That's such a good musical.
Oh yeah,
parody.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's. I mean, the whole thing is great, and I'm like, oh, that is probably like the last like movie musical I loved. I brought this up to Griff Newman, and I was like, what do you think is the last? And he pointed me out to a scene from High School Musical 3.
Okay.
And I watched it. It was really great. It was a really great scene.
Wait, it's not the one where Zac Efron's like punching in the middle of the field, is it? Oh, I think that might be from 2. That's the only one I know.
No, I think it was. It's just like this. I don't know. It seems like a typical high set beat, and then it's like, and then it goes crazy. But but Griff was making a case for that, and then he had another one that I don't remember off the top of my head.
So it might be mine. Last great movie musical. This is also an easy call for me. And again, people that watch the show will know that it is definitely Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again. Mamma Mia 2. 2, not 1. 1 is not good because they try to just recreate the original stage show and it doesn't really work. But 2 was made to be a movie, and so it's awesome.
Yeah.
And the director and writer, this is not a joke, Mitch, was inspired by Godfather 2 while writing it. And he wanted something that flashed back and forth, like into present time, and gave us like the origin story of Meryl Streep as well. Like it's awesome.
So I shouldn't speak on Grist's behalf. I'm sure he'd come on here and he would kill it and say everything. But he said that he loved the Travolta Hairspray movie, and then he said the Mamma Mia sequel is kind of incredible.
Yes.
Is what he was saying. I have like a part of my issue with newer musicals is that they get like so glossy, like even like La La Land or something. Like it just feels so glossy, and I don't feel like I'm in the moment. And I don't even think that's necessarily because it's like a big number, or like that the opening scene where they're dancing on the car, like by the cars or on the freeway or whatever. Like I love big moments like that. I wish more of La La Land was like that moment. Honestly,
have you ever seen The Umbrellas of Cherbourg?
No,
that's one of the movies that he was really inspired by, and I watched that for the stream. I actually watched it several months ago, but I watched it again for this. We did an episode on the stream, and it is much better because it's French and it's like good, and that's what he was like trying to do. And it was like, and it's just like just watch the original people. Just don't watch La La Land. Watch Umbrellas of Cherbourg. It's on HBO Max, I think.
I mean, a part of it might be like there's when I was watching Fiddler, there's like moments where there's ADR. There's just like a couple moments where it's ADR, and I'm like, oh, modern musicals feel like it's all ADR, which it probably is. Like the music sounds like maybe it's just like too perfected, you know, like it's overproduced.
And sometimes I like that. Like I like being able to have the opportunity to have a full sound. But yeah, to your point, they don't really think about the movie musical as its own product. It's like a way to sell the show itself, and that's the sort of, I think, where like what you're talking about of things being kind of like have an overly like a sheen or like overproduced or whatever is, I think it's like where the commerce meets sort of the art kind of they're making these shows to like run forever and to license to people and to do revivals, and like so it's like creating like this like product, and there's so many people involved, especially getting into that original production and all that sort of thing, and so many like things that you have to like be mindful of in terms of what audience you're going to bring in and all that kind of stuff, so that like it's, you know, it's rare that something that's like genuinely very original makes it, or necessarily, or has some sort of like rough edges that feel kind of more real, that I kind of more like if something has sort of some that it's not so just like polished, you know. There's stuff in the musical we'll talk about today where I'm like, oh, you feel so in this moment. It feels like you're like, this song is being like you're there and watching. Absolutely. This. Yeah, we were doing the watch together for it on Thursday, and I was like, some of the big like sort of more revelry like kind of moments of the big parties, I'm like, I want to be there. That looks so fun. Like I really like it. Looks awesome. All right, we got to move on this quiz to this next question.
Of course. Wait, I got to say one last thing, because you mentioned Godfather.
Yeah.
And I'm just, as a tease, there's a moment in the musical today that I feels like Godfather too, which we can talk about.
Great. That's a great little tease. We can circle back to that. All right. Mitch, I think I might know your answer for this one, but it's on the quiz. What is your musical theater archetype? So like your character archetype in a musical. Are you the ingenue, the villain, the sidekick / friend, the character actor / comic relief / old, or other? And I mean, clearly you're the ingenue, right?
No.
What?
I'm the character actor, other, old.
Right.
I mean, like my first role ever. Well, my first role ever was people in the chat. Someone in the chat just said I'm Officer Krupke.
You can Krupke.
That would be a fun role. I would love to yell at those dancing youths.
Right.
But I my first role was as a munchkin in Wizard of Oz, and that was like when I was in 5th grade. That was my first role, and then I went to theater camp, raised the curtain.
Okay.
Summer theater camp in Quincy, Massachusetts, and it would be basically me in theater camp, and then like all the other Quincy kids in basketball camp, and then like when it was like lunchtime, they'd all see you and they're like, "What are you doing?" And you're like, I'm in theater camp." Like it was like one of those moments where I was like,
right.
Fuck, I'm in theater camp. I'm not good at basketball. I love to watch basketball.
Oh, I'm terrible at basketball too.
I was never good at basketball, and I was at theater camp, raise the curtain, and then my first role, I played LeFou. That was my first role. I was a sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
I was the villain sidekick, which is, I mean, like, what better role than that? To be a little,
just be a little toady.
Yeah, not only are you the villain, but you're like the villain sniffling little assistant.
It's fun to play like low status and villain kind of, because it's also fun to be like the main arch villain and get to just be like, you know, have just like your inhibitions go or whatever and just be like, ha ha ha, I'm evil or whatever. But yeah, getting to also be low status then and like grovel, like that's funny. It's always funny and fun.
Oh yeah, no, it ruled. And then after that, I went on to play. So how many years did I do? I guess I did 3 years of theater camp. No, 4 years of theater camp. And it was kind of like auditioned for like movies a little bit, like that were around the New England area back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved theater stuff. But my second role was Charlie Brown, and you're a good man, Charlie Brown. So that was a big one. That was like my first like leading role as a child. And then after that, I was Curly in Oklahoma.
Oh wow, that's the lead.
And so I got a couple.
And that is an ingenue. There you go.
Yeah, a run of a couple of leading roles, and then finally, I was like the dad in The Point. You know the play The Point, like that like weird 70s, where basically it's Coneheads.
Oh wow, I don't know that. It's a weird 70s play. I don't know that play.
It's bizarre.
Wait, is it a musical?
It's a musical.
I do not know that one. Wow.
The Point. I don't know if you can Google it right now. It's a very strange. It was very strange, and I was like the father of the main kid in The Point, and then, I did some like in middle school, like while I was doing theater camp, I was also like doing some roles there, but. When I went to middle school, it was the same theater director. It was very weird, but I did not. Also, like in middle school, like you're a sixth grader, and then like the eighth graders obviously kind of run the show, and then seventh, and like it goes. You kind of move up the ladder. But I never really in theater camp is where I had like those lead roles, and then in middle school I never really had any of like there was like the Princess and the Once Upon a Mattress, and I was like a guard, like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to high school, was afraid of getting made fun of, and didn't do theater anymore. That was
yeah, I know that. That was like
the end of the story for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, that was I think I had sort of the exact same experience of middle school. It was cool. It was like everybody. It was cool to do all the cool kids did the musical, and you wanted to be like and actually. If I remember correctly, our middle school drama teacher was kind of a popularity like horror or whatever, like instead of a fame horror, she was a popularity horror. She was like, oh, the popular kids kind of get like, make sure, because I guess, sell tickets or something, I don't know. But that was like the cool thing to do. And then, I got to high school and not most, but like a good half of the people were like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And I was like, fine, more parts for me. I don't care about being a loser.
Yeah, no, it was show chorus and theater and stuff like that all through eighth grade. I think I just did all of it, and then I cut it all off. That was it. You know what I mean?
I even auditioned for our show choir in high school one year, and they didn't. We needed at least the teacher wanted at least I think 5 men in order to actually have men. She didn't want there to be just like 2 or 3 guys. This is just like, nope. Sorry, we're not just going to be show choirs for girls for now because he couldn't get enough guys to sign up.
Well, at least you didn't like get the boot because it was
well, yeah,
there was a lot of people.
And, and I understand why. It's like vocal balancing wise, it would just sound bizarre. It's like, and this is just like 3 like low voices balancing against it.
Voices going all over the place if you're whatever in 9th grade or 8th grade.
Yeah,
but I regret not doing it in high school. My aunt Masha's upstairs right now, and she was a big theater person. And she kind of got me into some of that stuff. But I regret I regret not doing it later. It's just a stupid thing of when you're 14 or 15 and you're afraid of
Mitch,
what people think.
I think you've been on plenty of stages since then to make up for it.
For sure, yeah. No, I went to college, and then like I was like, I love comedy and I like love performance stuff. And when I was in college, I was like, oh, I could like write, and like that's like I like creating stuff. So that was like, oh, I'll write something. But then I'm like too lazy and hate like everything I write, so I like don't even like to do it that much because I'm just like, this sucks. But and then when I went to LA, I was like, I love to perform. I used to perform. Like, why the hell not try to do it again? And then loved it, and it was like, oh yeah. Now I feel bad that I didn't do it. And now I think especially nowadays, I think it was a certain kind of something in the 97, 98 where it's like there was a very real possibility of like, you're not cool if you do that. Where now Absolutely. I think, I mean, I'm sure that it is the same in some areas and some high schools and stuff like that. But I think kids are more open to stuff like that now. I hope at least. But
yeah, I think like I was lucky. My high school, we had a really good drama program. We had like a really great stage with a full fly system and everything. Like it was like super like good setup, and our social scene was more like, I guess there was a popular crowd, but it was kind of like, it was already at that point where everything was just like segmented. It was like, you're in this group or that group or this group or that group or whatever, like, or you have your group of friends. And so I don't know, it wasn't like as big of a deal. It was like, okay, I'm not trying to be cool anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Mitch, how do you musical theater? So now this is kind of like a two-part question because like the past year, obviously, nobody's been able to do musical theater. But like in your normal quote-unquote life before then, how often would you go to the theater or to see a musical or put on a movie musical or a soundtrack or anything like that? How, and it could be not at all, but how do you in your daily life tend to musical theater?
Not often. I was lucky in that my like mom and dad tried to introduce some of that stuff early.
Oh, right. And you told me when we were texting that you saw a very awesome production that I'm very excited to talk about.
And it's very funny because I went with my sister got mono, the kissing disease as they called it back in the day, which not to say that that's how she got it, but she got it, and it like can fuck you up bad. She was like fucked up for months, but she had mono. We were supposed to go to London. It was like a big family trip, and we were going to go with my godparents and their family. And my sister got mono, and my mom was like, you and Mike should go to London to my dad. So my dad and I went to London, and this was already planned, but my dad and I and my godparents' family went and saw Starlight Express. We saw Starlight Express in London, and I like loved it. I mean, like for a kid, especially because like
when was this? Like, how old were you?
I was probably in third grade. I was like 10, maybe 9. Like 9 or 10. And we saw a couple other shows. We saw like I think we saw like Robin Hood or something strange over there. We saw one or two shows that were like a little bit more of snoozers. And then you have this fucking show and there's people just on rollerblades dashing around. And you're like, this rules. I mean, like,
if people don't know what Starlight Express is, it's the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical that followed Cats that is about trains that are portrayed by people on roller skates, and they're like competing for who's the best train or like who's the fastest train, and then there's like multiple like cars make one train, and it's like 5 people, and they're like, it's
it's fucking crazy. I remember Starlight Express, answer me yes, like that's all I remember from it. And like, I mean, it's fun. It's a fun, crazy musical. But that was big. And then like I saw like Phantom with my sister when I probably a little bit like I was probably like 13 or 14 or something. And
good time to see that because it's a very horny show, I always say.
Oh, it is definitely a horny show. Yeah, no, I mean like I remember my sister and I. It was like a weird gift that my mom got the ticket somehow, and they were like decent seats where we were like, pretty close, and why, like it wasn't like we were like, I loved the theater and I loved performing, but I wasn't like I wasn't crazy about theater shows or musicals or stuff at that time. Like I was just lucky that my mom and dad just kind of like showed it to us, and I was able to see it. And I remember when the chandelier drops and like the music started, my sister and I were both like, "What the fuck is this?" Like we were like, "It's a crazy opening," and it's like a big loud opening.
Yeah.
And then I remember loving it. I do remember really enjoying Phantom, and from there it was like when I got to college, I didn't see too much. I was like more on like TV film side, so I filmed some stuff and was also just an idiot.
Because I almost auditioned for Ithaca for their musical theater program, actually.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yeah, and if I had and I'd gotten in, I guess we probably would have overlapped, I think, by 1 year maybe. So,
oh wow! All right, yeah.
Alternate reality.
Yeah, that's why. Well, it's very cold there. I don't know if you missed that. You didn't miss much at all. I did like theater classes there a little bit, but I mean, like I was also like I really. When I went to LA, that's really when I got back into it. And Neil Campbell's like a big theater person. He loves the theater, and I'll talk to him about it. But
Neil Campbell's also a Caps fan, I believe. So.
He is a Caps fan. I think he texted me about how the Caps were going to beat the Bruins. So you're not alone there either. But I wasn't like I wasn't like crazy about going to see shows, which I should have been. But I also like knew of them, and I would watch growing up and stuff, just like stuff like The Sound of Music and Fiddler on the Roof and things like that. Like
all the Disney movies too, of like
all the Disney movies
or all musicals. Which
my mom would play Peter Pan, like the
Mary Martin Peter Pan with her.
100%, yeah. We had the tape of that, and we'd watch that all the time. Like things like that were like. I was immersed in that world, luckily, which
right.
I love because I do love it, and I have been appreciating it more.
It's
just
also even as a comedy person, like a comedy performer, like being conversant in those like references and stuff, like especially those big shows, like that, it happens like so much, it's such a cultural shorthand in a way. Some of these really big musicals, like the one we're talking about today, gets parodied a lot. So yeah.
And the one we're talking about today is one that I just knew from when I was like a little kid. But I'll say this, a blind spot for me is a big one, and you'll be like, "Oh, you love South Park the musical," but I've never seen Les Mis. So I've never seen Les Mis, and I know I have to. I've got to see it at some point. I've been trying to think of like the perfect.
Not the movie. Not the
movie.
I
mean, that's the issue. Is that like that's how I would see it. Is the movie, and then everyone tells me not to watch.
Track down the 25th anniversary or 15-year anniversary, I believe, concert production.
Okay.
It's got, I think, Lea Salonga in it, and it's that one I think is probably my favorite one that's recorded. It's also it's an interesting show. That's sort of that's a show that kind of changed my life and set me like on the path. Was the show that I saw on Broadway, and then I came home and I looked in my newspaper, and there was auditions next weekend for the student edition, like in our like the first one in the region that they were doing of Les Mis, and so I went out and auditioned for that, and I got Marius and blah 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 blah, and that was like all over for me from there. And I was like no longer just like doing these for fun at school, and it was like no, I actually like I really am interested in this kind of.
So Oliver was another. My sister was Fagin in Oliver, and
cool.
And that for me, that was like kind of the funny thing that like got me so interested in it is like my sister did Oliver and she was Fagin, and I was like, that's fucking cool, and I want to do something like that. And then I was the Munchkin. I was like, Munchkin sucks, and I was giant fucking Munchkin. And then
were you on your knees even, or
no, just standing straight up, like right around when I was like starting to get chunky. Big old Munchkin. And then my I don't even know what Munchkin I was. I think chocolate Munchkin.
You weren't one of like the Lollipop Guild or anything?
I was
not one of the featured Munchkins?
I was jelly filled Munchkin. Oh, I'm thinking of the Dunkin' Munchkins.
Okay, I see. I was slow. I was a step behind on that. I got it now.
but I that's where I was like, oh, and like I was like, I want to keep doing this, and then that's when I did the summer theater and stuff like that. And I just remember like thinking it was so cool to be on, especially because the summer theater program was at the high school where my mom taught. My mom worked at North Quincy High School forever, and it's the high school I ended up going to. and like just being on that stage and being behind the scenes, I just thought was so fun. Like there was like such an addictive thing to it, and just like walking on the stage and rehearsing, it feels like you're in like this sacred place, even though this is just like a high school theater, but surely you really feel that way. And then it wasn't until I didn't really get that experience again until after college. So it was like, like it was a good like almost 8 years. I mean, like I did a little bit of stuff in college as far as like on camera, like, like doing a thing or two for like someone's student films, but I was a good 8 years, especially in that prime development phase where I wasn't doing theater stuff. And then going back to UCB, like that's where I started again, was UCB, and just starting all over again, and the fear of being on stage, which is like overwhelming.
And it really like doesn't. I feel like it doesn't go away. I don't care if you're like,
no, never
like even like the most accomplished stage actor. Like there's still like a little like, what if something goes wrong or whatever? Like there's like you can't completely eradicate it, but it's I don't know. Maybe
for sure. I mean, I feel like even I won't speak for Paul F. Tompkins, but like one of the most comfortable guys on stage or whatever, one of the most comfortable people can go out there and not care. And I can go out and not care and bomb and not care, and I don't, like in comedy is slightly different in some ways, but I mean not really, but a little bit different in that it's your own prepared stuff or whatever.
I have a very like liberal definition of theater in terms of like, so I consider like UCB comedy performance, like that's theater to me. Like what's the difference? It's somebody on stage in front of audience. Like I think stand-up comedy is theater, I think of rock concerts theater, like it's all different kinds of theater to me. So I don't really see the distinction. I mean, when you've got actor, performer in front of audience, that's theater.
For sure. I know it's there's a message right now in the chat of like, it went away from me after like 100 performances of the same show. That I understand, because we used to do the Birthday Boys, which is my sketch group. We used to do the same show called Hot Doggin', and we would do that, and I would not have like a care in the world. And like even when we do like we sometimes in San Francisco Sketch Fest we'll get together and we'll do a show every year, and like I'm not worried at all going out on stage. I think going out on stage and doing something new, which like I think there's always got to be a little bit of butterflies, but I don't know, I can't speak for everybody. Like it's not as much as it once was. Like I could literally, and this isn't bragging, this is bad, but I could go out on stage and bomb and be like, ugh, this sucks. And then you'll be like, afterwards, you'll be like, oh, that sucked, but whatever. You'll get over it, Where when you're first starting, or like when I was getting back into it, the idea of going out on stage and not being funny was terrifying, because you're like, especially like, oh man, I'm around all these funny people, and then like, this just shows I don't belong, or whatever, and it depends on what type of performer you are. If you're like, I'm a collaborative performer and I like to like work with other people and make or like I am like a guy who I'm a performer who likes to make their own stuff and go out on stage and like do new character bits all the time, which I don't think I am as much. I like to performance things. I liked working in a sketch group, and I do like writing sketches with, but like going out and doing like a new character bit. I don't love it. I like improvising too. Like I like a thing where there's no set expectations. So,
well, that's sort of like what I've set for myself here. Like that's a lot of the reason why I started doing this show, is because it was like a way to kind of scratch the performance itch, and there's people there, and there's the live response and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I've kind of I did prepare for this show because I appreciate Mitch, you taking your time to be here. But usually I'm like throwing it together like right today. I mean, I've like watched the show and everything, but I'm like frantically writing my intro. I introduced my guests, and I still have the last week's guest nameplate is still up, and I have to update it while they're there.
I mean, yeah, for real. The reason that we started Doughboys was basically to scratch that itch of getting up on stage. And for Nick was kind of making his way. He was moving out of that area. He was moving out of that. He was kind of retiring as a performer, like as a stage performer. And so he's trying to transition into something new where he still got to like perform in some sort of way. And he does his intros for every episode. And Nick is a super funny performer. This is my co-host on the Doughboys podcast.
Nobody tell him Mitch is saying nice things about him, please.
Well, it's funny because Nick, like when I first went to UCB theater in LA, that was like, Nick was like one of the people I was like, oh shit, these people are so funny, and like doing this form, which ultimately I'm like, the form, like I did it too, the Harold or whatever. I'm like, this sucks. The Harold sucks, and Nick would agree with that. But also just seeing these people who are so funny, like Neil Campbell and Heather Campbell and Paul Rust and Nick Weiger and Drew DeFonso Marks, like they were this group called The Last Day of School, and Jim Woods and there were a few more people that have been in and out of there, but all these super 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 funny people, and you're like, damn, that's impressive. And Weiger just always has had that. He's always such a funny performer. And then for both of us, there just comes a time when like some people just transition away from the theater, and I get it. And you know, Nick was living he was living at Santa Monica at the time, and he didn't want to come all the way over to the east side and do stuff on a weekly basis. And so that the podcast definitely scratched that itch. It was huge, and it's part of the reason we did it. And it can be fun. It's different, as you know. Right. Like this is different than being on stage for sure.
It's funny, like all those performers that you listed, because I'm like fans of all of them from podcasts. I don't really get to. I'm in the East Coast here, so I could see them perform live, but that they all have this, and it's something that I try to go for, like when I'm making those stupid intro songs or something. And it's just like the kind of comedy that really appeals to me in general is the like. It's something that, you know, improv is, you know, you don't want to think, right? You want to just kind of react and like naturally and not plan necessarily. And so like, it's that completely stupid kind of place. Like whenever something is like so completely stupid, it's like, that's the choice you have to make. Like whatever is like the absolutely dumbest possible thing. And then like the one that makes you laugh, you're like, that's so stupid, I have to do it. And I find that like with a lot of like the stuff you guys do on Doughboys and all that too. And I really appreciate it.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah, no, that's always the most fun. I mean, like, as you know, like if you're like, it's funny because on Doughboys, we can just abandon a bit or whatever. But then on stage, if you like that, there's been like times when I've done improv or whatever, I'm like, I'm going to commit to this bit. And then like people aren't liking it. And then you're like, oh, fuck. I just got to like keep committing to this bit.
Somebody bail me out.
I remember with my Harold team, which a ton of funny performers on there. Mookie Blakelock, Stephanie Allen, Mike Hanford.
Very funny people.
Zoe Jarman, Mike Cassidy, Annie Mebin, so many funny people, and then Alan McLeod and Trish McAlpin, Molasses Boy and Trish McAlpin. They joined it later, but like all these, I just want to give them a shout out to all of them. I hope I covered everybody, but all these funny people. And I remember I remember just doing the show and yeah, like committing to this one thing, and then like being like down on my knees and like committing to this character and like saying this thing out loud, and like just theater, you could hear like a pin drop, and I was like, and it was like the blackout, like, and it was just like, oh, this sucks. And that is like, that was some of that stuff can stay with you forever. Bombing hard like that can.
Oh my god,
stay with
I've
you
done
forever.
musicals like that where it's like musical comedies and like the audience is like looks pissed off to be there, and you're like, how do I even get through this? Do this dance? All right, I want to get through this quiz real quick.
Yeah, keep going. Sorry,
Mitch. This is okay. We're gonna get your takes here, and I know that you don't necessarily have, but you've seen a good bit of musicals. So, what musicals do you think should be more popular or beloved? It's like a musical that you remember, that you love, that doesn't get brought up or done enough. And then, what musicals are you kind of more sick of and should maybe be less popular, in your opinion?
What musicals should be? Well,
and if it can be an opinion, that will make it like harder for you to get cast and stuff to piss like.
So you want me to say Hamilton is bad or something? I'll do it.
Well, but we are officially a Fuck Scott Rudin stream here. I will say he was a big time theater producer. Where Fuck Scott Rudin is the official position of musical theater is good, actually.
I will say that I mean like Starlight Express is my answer because I already said it earlier.
Yeah, I love that answer.
And then we think of what I mean, like whatever people can like. Musicals for what, you know, like I can't really there's musicals that don't work for me as well, and like I didn't like love La La Land, but it doesn't mean that I think it's like bad, you know what I mean? Like people love La La Land and people love Hamilton, and I watched something. I've never actually fully watched Hamilton all the way through. I think I told you. And so, like I want to watch the whole thing, but
yeah,
I don't know if I
recording on Disney
as much as other people.
The recording on Disney is an excellent recording. I bring up Hamilton. Hamilton comes up a lot for this question because I think it's when you say what's what show should be less popular? It's like, well, what's the most popular show in the world, and has been for since it premiered, basically. Like, so, and when something is that big of a cultural behemoth, you have to kind of like, you have to kind of puzzle on it, be like, why is that, and what does that say about us? And so while I think that it's a very well structured, put together, written musical, it also has like a number of things that bother me more just in general of how we talk about American history kind of and make popular culture about it. It's a little bit too Sorkinified in its like politics and worldview kind of for me.
You're talking about
Hamilton.
What are you? Okay, yeah, Hamilton. Okay.
Which is a banned, which is a banned word in the chat as well because it's too contentious of a topic. So it's a banned word in the chat. If people have been trying to talk about it, that's what's happening there.
I think that people call it Cramilton. Man, Cramilton, Shamilton. Everyone's wow.
Source Force getting spicy.
I think that the last. I never really truly answered your question of the last musical I saw like in theaters, which was Book of Mormon at Pantages, and I loved the Book of Mormon. I thought it was great, and it's hard to say that like, oh, I wish that was more popular because it was gigantically, hugely popular. So I don't know if
it's more. That one's more. I wish it was more accessible, and there's a lot of shows like that. Yeah, where like that was a show that I had never listened to the soundtrack or interact because I like to wait, especially for a comedy show, to see the whole thing before I like listen to the soundtrack and like so I understand what the jokes are and that sort of thing. Because I don't tend to like, fall in love with the show until then. But for this show, I talked about it, and so I found it's called a slime tutorial. Which is a video of a performance that somehow miraculously comes into your possession or that you find and stumble upon and watch. And it's not the ideal way to watch things, but this was a fairly good slime tutorial. So I watched the original cast with Andrew Rannells and Josh Gad and everybody.
Oh, wow.
It was good.
Gad is like a funny example of like a guy who like, I feel like in the comedy world gets made fun of a lot. And then I'm like, it is crazy that he like originated this role that is great and funny, and he was good in it. You know what I mean? Like there's no denying that.
He
like,
just kept hitting the same note though, kind of like even when he's Olaf and when he's everything, it's like all right.
Oh, this guy, like I'm this guy. Yeah, and it's like I get that, but.
Do you know? Do you remember? Or I mean, I guess he's still around because you maybe went for the same parts at times. Dan Fogler, also a musical theater guy that was from Balls of Fury. We talked about the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee a few weeks ago. Very very funny musical. And he is great in that. But that's the same.
Fogler.
And he got a whole career off of that. And Jesse Tyler Ferguson basically got Modern Family off of that too. So there's like, and Josh Gad kind of was off of Book of Mormon as well. So there's like a Broadway, like your starring turn, and then you get plucked and put in Hollywood. Like that happens like all the time. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
Oh, for sure. And the kind of the opposite happened with the movie we're talking about today. But when I watched Book of Mormon and the "Fuck You God" song came on, it was like the most I had ever laughed in maybe in a theater. I mean, I thought it was so fucking funny. Mm-hmm. But a musical that I don't know. I guess I just got to go with Starlight Express because maybe I just don't know the temperature of like things that aren't considered popular or like.
It would be a hit.
I don't know when that's not mainstream enough.
I feel like it would be an ironic hit, as it should be. I mean, like, because I'm a person that, like, I loved the Cats movie. Like, I don't distinguish between ironically loving and loving. If I'm having a great time and laughing, I don't care if it's ironic or whatever. That's all I know is especially this past year, I've been like, fuck it, chase your bliss. Just, you got to get through this. Like, so, like, I think people would line up, especially now that weed is legal in New York, and they could just like get ready. It would be a party every night. The Starlight Express on Broadway.
I'm looking through. I mean, I would be there. I'd be there with you. I would fucking love that. I'm looking through. I mean, like it's hard to say that like I watched All That Jazz this year, which I had seen most of, and
that's one of my favorites.
It rules, but like. A thing like all these popular musicals that I'm looking at, and like even like the Muppet movie, which I wish more people like loved and thought of as a musical. Maybe it's like
Mitch,
a part of it.
Like you don't like. I guess you're not really plugged into what is necessarily like really popular beyond Hamilton and like these like huge names that like everything says. So it's
when you were saying Waitress, I just like recognized Waitress from like the billboards when I was like walking through Broadway. I like don't know,
and I don't really know. I know the one song from Waitress that everybody knows is a great song. It's a really great song. The Used to Be Mine, that song. Oh, so good. But but that's another one because I haven't seen it. I've been I'll eventually do an episode on it, I think, and watch a bootleg. All right, last question in the quiz here. If your life was a musical, and the musical of your life, what are you, as the star of your musical, singing as your 11 o'clock number? Now, an 11 o'clock number, Mitch, is like the classic example I always bring up is Rose's Turn from Gypsy, which is like when she's like kind of losing her mind and like doing the "Mama's coming up," and she's like having a whole breakdown. And it's the number at the end of the show, which is like the character. Actually, She Used to Be Mine is an 11 o'clock number. It's the character being like summing up everything they've learned or whatever that they're taking with them. So and it doesn't have to be a show tune. It can be a pop song. It could be a song that doesn't even exist. It could be like, this it would be like this. What is your 11 o'clock number?
My 11 o'clock hour is like, I think it would be something like, I slept in late and there's a sandwich in my hand. Something along those lines. Like, I can't believe I slept through that important event again. My life is bad.
The musical of Mitch's life, Mitch sleeps through it. People are singing songs. Mitch is supposed to be here right now. And then he wakes up for the 11 o'clock number and sings, I slept through my whole musical.
I like very melancholy. Yeah. I was listening to the Rainbow Connection today, and it was making me tear up, and I was like, this is the sort of song that I like. I hope that people will think of me if they hear it or something, because it's just like probably me fucking up somehow. And
yeah, I love that. And now I'm going to get to work on that musical, and I could probably get a lot of your friends to be in it. We'll see. All right, before we go and take a break here, and we'll come back in just 5 minutes, I forgot. There was one more thing that I do need to show you, because this is something, actually, she's in the chat right now, my friend Emmy. What's up, Emmy? I don't remember what was said. But on Doughboys several years ago, you talked some shit about eating crabs, and you actually said, I think, fuck Maryland. And I have you here. I have the opportunity. And she did record a message that I'd like to play for you now. So it's I'm sharing it with you. And
okay.
Here it's very short, but I made a little video of it, and here it is.
This is an open letter to Mike Mitchell of the Doughboys podcast from all of the Maryland fans. We would like you to issue a retraction and an apology for the grievances taken out upon the state of Maryland in reference to the crab eating. It's a way of life. It's how we were raised. We would appreciate it if you didn't hold that against us. Thank you for your time and for this
Shirtless Martin O'Malley.
Sincerely, Maryland. Goodbye.
All right, Emmy's really mad that I played that, so sorry, Em. Yeah, so I had to make sure I played that for you. Do you have any response?
Emmy, here's what I'll say. You can take that bee and crab, turn it upside down. That's what you can eat. Eat crap. What do you think of that, Emmy?
Oh, she's so sorry. She's so apologetic in the chat. Emmy, I had to do it.
Emmy, you just said Mitch the musical, and I liked it. You did nothing wrong. You didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, we love Emmy again.
But I can't help but say crabs are crap. Hey. Lobster's where it's at.
Oh no, come on. What about in cake form? Then they're already
crab
out.
Cakes are nice.
And then it's just like
lobster.
A big lump of crab. I love crab.
Who chooses crab over lobster?
I am a crab man. Let's sound off in the chat. We're gonna go to break, but everybody, while we're on break, sound off in the chat whether you favor crab or lobster, and we will be back in 5 minutes. So the time is currently.
You know what?
What?
I like Baltimore a lot. It's a fun city.
I mean,
Great city.
There's a lot happening here, you know. It's all right. Hey, it's okay.
Everyone's saying crab over lobster too. Wow,
Right.
Dungeness over lobster. Hey, look, I don't hate crab, but when you're trying to eat it out of the shell, it's bad. You guys are fools.
Well,
You're all
it's
fools.
it's a whole cultural thing here where you have the crab feast and people all sit around and everybody's like cracking it, and then like you can kind of sit there and be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's one person that's like really into it and they're like, I'll do it. Here, let me open it up for you, and that's how I usually do it.
That's lobster too. You get the same shit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being crabby. Crab is crap.
Don't bother Mitch. He's my grandfather got me a shirt when I was a kid that said, "Don't bother me, I'm crabby."
That's good.
And he loved, because I was a little crabby kid, so he loved that.
That's enough to make me like it. Honestly, I like it now.
All right, everybody. We'll be back in 5 minutes, so around 6:10. All right, don't go anywhere, and enjoy more of my stupid opening theme songs. Oh, we're back. We are back.
Top.
Enough of me singing like a dumbass in the intermission.
I've cooled down.
Okay. He's cooled
Because,
down about the crabs.
I'm cool. I've cooled down about Emmy and her attack on me. Because I'm more steamed than a fucking Maryland crab right now.
He's bright red, and his claws are going. "Arr." That is funny that in every video game that there's a crab, the crab is red, but crabs are never red unless they're cooked.
Yeah.
So
Show us a red crab.
Yeah.
We want to see a red crab. To all the game developers out there.
No. They should be blue, blue and grayish.
Blue.
Or that's the Maryland blue crab, and sometimes they're like brown, look like crap.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mitch, we're talking Fiddler on the Roof. If I Were a Mitch Man.
Yeah. I like that.
Or If I Were a Spoon Man, alternately.
I love that too.
We are talking about this movie from 1971 to 71. Yep, that's right. And directed by Norman Jewison. The musical premiered on Broadway in 1964. That's right. So that's a pretty quick turnaround, actually, kind of, like 7 years from Broadway production to the first movie. And it was a huge hit. I mean, the original musical actually was like the first, well, not the first, but it set the record at its time for longest running show. It got beat by Grease eventually, was what beat it. But it ran for years and years and years. And then this movie was also a huge hit as well. What was your immediate response? So you said earlier to me that you watched this in 2 sittings.
I did. I watched a little past. I was watching it. My mom and I were going to watch it. I put it on. She fell asleep like almost immediately. She loves a lot of the music from it, and I have known these songs since I was a kid. And obviously, my mom, in 71, she probably saw the movie, and it won. It was nominated for Best Picture. I know that.
It was nominated for a bunch, and it won a few sound awards. Actually, I think it was maybe John Williams' first Oscar was for doing the orchestrations and original score for this. Yeah. So that's kind of a cool.
Yeah, that's cool as hell. That rules. And rightfully so. I mean, just all this music I just knew as a kid, and it was just a movie I had seen as a kid. Hey,
welcome Raiders from Fuzz. Hey, welcome. We're talking Fiddler on the Roof with Mitch.
Yeah, what's up, Fuzz? Dr. Fuzz. So I saw it as a kid. I really enjoyed it as a child. I liked the music. If I Were a Rich Man, I feel like that's the one that stuck. My mom always sang Matchmaker. My mom loves Matchmaker. And then If I Were a Rich Man it's just a fun song to sing. Da 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 da.
It's you know who else thought it was a very fun song to sing? Gwen Stefani. Because she released a freaking pop song. I was like, yeah, it's has a weird.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow, I forgot about that.
Didn't she? Wasn't she also did one for the Lonely Goat Herd from Sound of Music? Right? Am I crazy? Is that something I imagined?
Possibly. I mean, she was on my mind today because I remember when I was graduating college. there was a row in front of me of these 3 women, and on their caps they had BANANAS on their caps, and I was like, it's time to get out of fucking college.
I do remember Hollaback Girl hitting big time when I was in college as well.
I was like, ugh, this sucks. Let's wrap it up, everybody. So I remember, yeah, a lot of those songs I remembered as a kid. My mom would sing Matchmaker and If I Were a Rich Man. And then there was some that, when I was watching it, I was like, this song rules, that I hadn't, remembered listening to. Sunrise, Sunset isn't like a song that I remembered as well, but I knew it. I definitely knew it.
Once it starts, you're like, oh, right, this song.
Oh, yeah. I was like, oh, yeah, this and that. And it's great. And I really love it. But my history with it, I told Evan Susser, who is a good friend, a great guy.
Of course, we love Suss.
A great guy. He's a Jewish man, and like we were talking about stuff. I truly, embarrassingly, I embarrassed myself because Norman Jewison, I thought that was like a pseudonym, and I thought like it was a production company, and I asked Susser and David Phillips, and they're like, no, that's a real guy, you idiot. And I was like, oh, all right.
Yeah, he's a really accomplished director. I mean, he had already won Best Director and Best Picture for In the Heat of the Night, probably like one of like what his big like kind of broke out there. His blank check, as Griffin Newman might say. And so he directed this. He directed Jesus Christ Superstar the very next year. Really was into a musical thing, and then never directed a musical again. And these are 2 excellent musicals. But then he also, I think probably his other most notable movie would be Moonstruck, that people know, and that was another one that he won a bunch of awards for as well. So he's a very, very accomplished director. But he also has, I'm going to go, because there's a bunch of movies I've never heard of, just like going through his filmography, and I kind of want to watch through the whole thing, because he's like really interesting. He just always does something completely different each movie.
I mean, the movie looks great. It's directed perfectly. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to me. I mean, Suss was walking me through all of this. He was basically just like, he's like, what time are you at? And we were walking through it, and he's like, I've seen this movie over 30 times, and he was filling me in on some stuff. He was a great guide to it for someone who hasn't watched it in a long time, but also someone who really appreciated it. And I loved it. The first 2 hours, to me, the crazy thing about it is that you're hit with so much at the top. Like you're just like,
it really like once tradition starts up, it just drops you. You're in Anatevka and life is happening, and it's just like everywhere. It's like the way that he just like. I said he like fills every frame of the screen, like especially in the beginning there, with so much like life and stuff happening. Yeah.
Yes. Wait, also, is that someone in the chat said that the director is not Jewish?
He's not Jewish. Yeah, his name is Norman Jewison. He is not actually Jewish.
That really.
Yeah, supposedly Protestant is what my friend Binging Games is saying in the chat. So
that's wild. That is news. That is news. I looked through some stuff of I was going through the Wikipedia last night and following it down some threads and seeing the difference between the stage show, which Susser had seen and I had never seen, and in the movie, and I love it.
It's very faithful as far as adaptations go. They add a song, and like there's like a couple of little they sort of make the constable characters kind of an invention of the movie, but it works to kind of clean things and just like make that really clear. And yeah, it's excellent film. I mean, just like it's filmed so well.
Susser was like, "Oh, the constable." He's like, "Good character," and I thought the constable would come around, but no, never really happens. And he's just kind of like, "I'm just obeying orders," sort of deal. And you're like, "Ew." There's the first 2 hours, like we were saying, just like hits you with so much, and like you jump into tradition, and then you get Matchmaker, and then you get If I Were a Rich Man, and it's like 25 minutes into the movie. You have all of those huge numbers. And it's only 25 minutes of the movie have passed.
And those all basically set up everything. Because what you have is, and so like there's the classic like types of musical songs. And so when I was watching this on Thursday again, I was reminded, so like Matchmaker is very much what you would call an I want song. But it's also like, and a classic thing of an I want is there's naivety and there's what you don't, realize. And so what's great about Matchmaker is it even has that counterpoint in the song. So it's a really fun, because usually an I Want song, which If I Were a Rich Man is also very much an I Want song. And which, like you say, follows right after it. But it's rare to have it be like a group kind of dynamic. And so I love that it introduces the sisters as this trio, and their feelings about each other and about the world and about tradition, which we just learned is a major theme of the show as well. It's an excellent way to start the show. But you're right, it is like front loaded of all this stuff, and then there'll be like long stretches where there's not necessarily a song or a big number or anything, but I think it does the really more realistic scene work just as well as the big numbers.
Yeah, I think if there's any time where like it drags, I think it was probably in that third hour, like some of the stuff with the third sister and but then also like the end is just very sad too, and there's like it is a good ending, but there is like a little bit where it's like after the wedding, and that like there is some stuff that and that's where my mom was awake for and I was like, you missed all the stuff you wanted to see, because I watched it
especially
with the second night too.
The wedding is so fun. I mean, well, then it's not fun, but it's like the bottle dance. I was like hooting and hollering watching the bottle dance. It's so cool.
I mean, the bottle dance that's a highlight for me, and I made sure to show my mom that moment too. I told you there's some bad ADR in the beginning, and I was like, oh no, is this like not how? And like that's what I was saying to you is like that connection, but it's only a couple times when Topol has like a couple lines that are ADR'd, but when they drop you in with Tradition, like you were saying, Tradition is such a great song, and then it is just great that he comes back to it. Like each time he's presented with a dilemma, whether it's with one of his daughters or with its laser wolf or whatever, and like I love with his daughters where he'll be like, on the one hand, he's talking to God.
On the other hand, yeah,
on the other hand,
I mean, so I want to get into just Tevye as a character, because he is, I think, one of the all-time best musical theater characters. Certainly, I think the best male musical theater character. Everybody that I put up against him would be like a Mama Rose or some other big sort of characters like that. But he is like, especially of like the classic musicals, this is, I mean, just such a great character, and a really you expect him to be one way, especially like maybe even coming to the show, because I have to admit that I saw this movie 4 or 5 months ago, and it was really my first time. Like if I saw it as a kid, I might have, and I didn't even really remember it. So if I saw it, so it's effectively my first time. I'd never seen it performed live. Obviously I know the big songs like you do, but I was just really, really struck by just like how the character is so much more complex and deep. And to your point about the sort of like the final hour where it kind of drags, I really appreciate the third sister in particular, because it's a moment where you're hoping Tevye will redeem himself. We're jumping ahead. But it's okay. Whatever. It's Fiddler on the Roof. It's one of the oldest movies ever.
Well, I will say the idea of like the third sister, like like the idea of her marrying outside of the room,
and him actually having a line, like him being like, no, I actually can't. He actually says like, if I bend so far, I will break or whatever. Like I can't. This is like the line I won't cross. Which feels really real. It doesn't feel like sugar coated like that. Like and. Then we're just going to jump all over the place, and it's fine. And then in the very end, when they come back, when they're all leaving Anatevka, and it's the youngest daughter and her husband, he still won't talk to them. It's still very cold, but there's the hope that eventually, like they are talking, and it's like maybe over time, but they still don't have them hug right there, and it's a bummer ending anyway. And they won't even give you that bone of like them reconciling, which feels honest. Like it feels, which in a musical is what you maybe would expect to be like everybody's hunky dory, but it's not going to go that way for you.
That ending is something that stuck with me for forever, because I watched that as a kid, and I still knew at the end that they were like all like getting booted out of their homes, and I like remember that, and it really stuck with me. And it is sad. He like he said, may God be with you or whatever. To like, and that's kind of the most we get of them reconciling, and
Right.
and it is a good moment. But all that being said, that is tough, and like you're seeing Tevye, deal with like a human thing and something that he's struggling with, but besides that, it's not something I should say as a Catholic man, but I think that he would be described as a mensch. I think he's just a lovable big guy.
I think you can say mensch. Text Susser, see if you get a mensch pass. I think you can say mensch.
I don't know. I don't know if I can say mensch, but Susser was guiding me through all this, and I loved hearing his thoughts on it too. And like he was like, "Oh, it is like it's like a film that is like important to me, and like it's something that I've watched a lot, and it is just a good movie." The thing that I loved about it, just like overall, and then I'll say something I didn't love about it overall, but it's just basically because it's whenever the stories were written, which was like 100 years ago or something insane, right? Tevye and his daughters,
right?
But the thing that I like about it is
Sholem Aleichem.
Yeah.
Yeah, was the name of the guy that wrote the original Tevye stories.
I think it's that sort of thing of what I love about
my friend Emmy is she is Jewish, and she says you can say mensch. So just letting you know.
Okay, all right. then Tevye is a mensch, and the thing I like about the movie, and that I think I've talked to Susser about this before, of like with Irish people and Jewish people, and like the similarities between the two, and the thing that I really like about the movie, and kind of it seems an attitude that a lot of Jewish people I've met over the years have, is like this thing of like we got to make what's good of what we have,
perseverance, and yep.
Life can be tough, life can be bad, and you just got to be, you make joy with people around you, and I love that, and like you really see that throughout the course of the movie, and Laser Wolf is even at the wedding, but
right.
And like he kind of like speaks up during the wedding, but like they still have like a heartfelt goodbye, and they still kind of love each other.
And I was like, because I have some Jewish family as well, and my grandmother was Jewish, and so and I also watched a lot of Jewish culture and that sort of thing. So like the big argument breaking out at the wedding, and then the wedding just kind of carrying on around it, I was like, this is great. It's just like something, and also, but just like in general, like sort of to your point about how you can connect it to the Irish experience and all these sort of things, is the universality of it just in general. And I think that that's where the music, and it being a musical, that's where that really sort of takes it over the top, and it makes you connect to it, because when there's a tune, when there's something that I don't know, it just like hits you on the more gut level, or something. And like watching it this week, especially when you're watching people, forced out of their homes by the state, and told, you have so much time to leave your home, and that's it, and you have no recourse, was very poignant to watch this week. And I will say, we don't have to dwell on it, but I will say Free Palestine, and and obviously all that. But
for sure.
But because it's and it's sadly, it will always be poignant. There's always going to be something like that happening.
It of course crossed my mind when we were watching this. I was like, oh wow, this is we're locked into this movie, and this is a lot of this stuff is going on right now. That's very hard to watch, and I agree with your sentiments there 100%. So that there's a moment in the movie where when Tevye and Laser Wolf, and it's such a whole moment to me, in that like Tevye and Laser Wolf go, they're celebrating, it's the L'chaim to life, and which I love, which that to me is like, when I remembered everything, I didn't remember L'chaim to life. I'm saying it wrong.
I love that sequence so much, because I love when like the Cossacks join in, like the Russian people that are also there at the bar. Yeah.
That's to me was so hopeful. Is like all these people are celebrating, and
right,
then
there's like an interchange. And what I love and what I love about it is, one of my favorite things in musicals, and actually you were in Oklahoma, which Oklahoma broke ground by being the first to do this, is when story is advanced, or plot is advanced through dance and not even just song, but actually just dance. So Oklahoma had the Dream Ballet, and this has a number of actually dance moments, and it also has a kind of Dream Ballet with Chavala as well at the end. But that is like, there's like a moment of tension where you think that maybe they're going to fight, and instead they do their respective dances and they like meld together, and it's like the most beautiful. Yeah, and that was the first time that I was like, this is so fun. I want to be there.
That's my favorite part of the movie, because it's just like that hopefulness is like, oh, this other group of people are celebrating what you're celebrating too, and that it is such a disappointment that the constable is just kind of like, in the end, is like carrying out orders or whatever, because you can tell when you see him early on, you can see the struggle in his eyes. It is a good performance. You can tell that he's struggling with this with like someone that he actually likes.
Right, but he is ultimately still doing the order, and like you can contrast him actually. You can contrast him with Chava's husband. I can never remember his name. He's the
I know who you're talking about.
But he is a Russian Protestant, and the implication from the dialogue at the end is that they could have stayed, that she actually would have been safe in Russia, married to him, but they chose to leave because he didn't want to be around that. And I think that's kind of a contrast of like, this guy chooses to continue carrying out these orders. He can act like he's nice to Tevye all he wants. But I agree, he's a great, like, complicated character, because especially when you, like, first meet him with Tevye, and there's the whole interchange, and Tevye has, and rewatching it really hit me a lot harder when Tevye says to him, "It's too bad you're not Jewish." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And, like, you realize, actually, then, now having watched, and especially, like, knowing where it goes in the end of it, that's, like, real for him. That's not, like, a bit or something. Like, it's great. It's a great moment. I mean, that entire dance scene to me is maybe my favorite part of the movie. The follow up to it, and I'll also say this, that the thing that to me, like, performance is so important. I was talking about that earlier. It's because of all these moments where, like, life is hard and bad, and then like they even sing that in L'Chaim. They're like things might not get better, but like we celebrate it anyway. And it's like, oh, that's like, to me also is like a part of what performance is like getting your mind off of the real world and getting lost in some sort of, in a show or a musical or singing or whatever it is. And that moment is just so great. And then, Laser Wolf, it doesn't turn out great for him within like the next couple scenes. I mean, it turns out great for him in that he goes to Chicago. It seems like that's and that's a great place for him because he's the butcher, and I'm sure that Laser Wolf did really well in Chicago. They loved their meat. I'm sure he did.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, there is also. I mean, I said that this is the hard thing of this movie is what I said to Susser is like, oh, what happened after this movie? And the daughter that's going to Krakow or whatever. You're like, that's terrifying. In the next 20 or 30 years. So There's and the movie ends on that heavy note, and obviously there's reasons why it ends on that heavy note, and it's powerful. It really stays with you forever.
And I think what really gives it that power, and I sort of see your point about the like dragging in the back half, especially, and that's a classic problem that people have with musicals in general. It owes, I think, to intermissions, but like it does a weird thing to the structure, and then second acts are almost always weaker than first acts, I would say, is a fair opinion that people hold. What I love about it in this film is it seems like a very clear and intentional contrast that Norman Jewison is making, especially when the beginning of, and all the joy, all the moments of joy in the first half, and seeing that kind of melt away to the final shots in the end of the Anatevka of the town when it's deserted and empty are devastating. That to me is like actually the hardest part of the movie to watch, because you remember what it was, and that is what like really makes it real. And like that's what I'm saying when like we're the poignancy of like the joy is real, like these lives are real, and I think that's like almost kind of the message, like these communities, like that's real. And then for some reason somebody says you can't be here anymore. That's what's arbitrary, and that just is what it was always going to feel wrong. But
just the bottle dance then being broken up by the program or whatever is is such a crazy, and then Tevye being like, clean up.
Right.
And
I love
like,
that moment.
all that
And that's
stuff
how and that's how it ends on stage too. Like that's exactly how it ends on stage, of him saying, well, we're going to clean up, and that music playing and him looking up to God and all of that is really.
And to be clear, I think that the ending is powerful. I think my issue more so is like, there's the sewing machine reveal where you think you're going to see a baby.
Yeah, I love that.
Kind of stupid.
I love that.
I could see, you know what? I could see that working on stage so much better than it works in a film. Like, I feel like that's like a very funny, like Broadway reveal.
But they also had a baby too.
Like, a huge laugh.
But
I mean, they also had a baby. You're like, oh, the baby's there. But then the I think like the Hava song, and then like the What Do We Leave, or Only Anatevka or whatever, like that. They're just the music there isn't like as because before that, I love every song, and just like you said in the beginning, tradition rules, and I wish tradition went on even longer, and I love that it comes back when he was saying on the one hand and the other hand, and then he goes tradition, and he'll just yell out tradition.
Right.
I fucking love it. I wanted to hear like the mama, the papa, and the son and the daughter. I wanted to hear the fucking cat and the dog. I want to hear.
But it's not the vibes anymore.
It's not in the fucking village.
It's not the vibes anymore.
Give me everyone. I want to hear the tradition of every single fucking person in the village. I loved that piece.
One of my favorite moments when you're talking about the village is when they have the Sabbath, when they have Perchik and Hodel over to have dinner the Sabbath, and they sing the prayer, and it pulls out and it goes to like all the different houses in the village and all how they're all doing it, and then it kind of like pans across the village as you hear this song, and it's like you're feeling these the prayers like echoing out of the windows, and like that this is like, and it's that way that, you know, we're with Tevye, that's our window in here, but it's like the movie like takes those moments, and that's why I don't mind it taking as much time as it wants, because it's taking those moments to like really like universalize and like show like it just like having these little details everywhere, and the fact that also oh shit, I meant to take a picture of this guy. Did you know that you're in this movie? That there's a guy in Anatevka that looks just like you.
My mom said this last night, and it got me mad.
Sorry. We were saying it when we were watching it on Thursday.
It's the same guy. My mom said it last night. She's like, that looks like you. And I was like, motherfucker.
It's in the wedding. In the wedding, when they're like, go to the rabbi, and everybody's like running over to the rabbi. It's like the guy standing behind the rabbi.
Show it. I want to see him, because he does. I'm not going to deny it. I think it's not the most flattering thing.
I don't know how I'll be able to pull him up. I should have taken the picture ahead of time here, but I'll post it on my Twitter after the Mitch and but there's there's characters like that where like you recognize that guy and then you see him again, and like this person had a whole detailed story, and like I actually like know that people have done this show. You're not just in the ensemble, like you have a name, like, and like it's like so much detail is in this, and you don't like take a lot of time necessarily to get in the weeds with all of it, but you like it all adds up to really feeling like you're getting a complete experience here.
The crazy thing is that Topol was fucking in his 30s. He was like 35 years old.
I'm turning 35 a week from Monday, and
it's insane.
It's
truly insane.
He looks like he's like 60. He's still alive.
He's still alive, yeah. He looks his most youthful in the L'Chaim song. He looks like, you see him with his hat sideways, and you're like, this looks like a young guy. But for the most part, you do think he's 60 or whatever. And like even like Laser Wolf, you're like, you're older than me. I'm like, was he older than him, or like, you know? And then he's so fucking young. And does such a good job that it is just truly it blew my mind how good he was.
Topol continued playing Tevye. I mean, he's continued to play Tevye. He played him into the 90s. He did like there was a revival on Broadway, and he played him again. He played him a few other places. And we should say that the original Tevye on Broadway is the great Zero Mostel, one of the best comic actors ever to do it. You know, from the producers and from A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum. That would be a musical I would cast you in, Mitch. You'd be a great Pseudolus in A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum.
Get me in there. Let's do it. I'm in.
It's a Sondheim. You're great. So he was the original Tevye, who's probably going to be too old, I think, by the time that they were filming this in 1971. There was also, Jerome Robbins, who did the original choreography for Fiddler on the Roof on Broadway and was the director. He ratted Zero Mostel out to the, Un-American Affairs Committee or whatever, the McCarthy hearings shit. So maybe that was why he couldn't get cast in it. I don't know. But, fuck that.
Also, by the way, Starsky is in this movie.
Yes.
Starsky is
Perchik.
Yeah, by the way, fuck that, by the way.
Yeah.
Sorry to jump on it with Starsky news.
Right. Starsky is also in this movie as Perchik. That is true. But
the hunk. He's like the hunky
Bolshevik. The hunky. Yeah, that it was. Tevye is more okay, as I think Bing and Games pointed out earlier. Somebody pointed out earlier that Tevye is more okay with a communist son-in-law than a non-Jewish son-in-law.
Which I was gonna say. That's my complaint is that the movie. Like everything in the world, there's like too much of a focus on marriage, and it's like, oh, good, they're happy and they found marriage. Which like modern day, you'd want one daughter to be like, I'm not getting married. You know what I mean? Like that's what you'd want to see nowadays or whatever. But again, to go back just a couple points. One, just the idea of that singing and dancing and like how celebrating or like any sort of production can just be a lifesaver for people, that can be and it just is, it's done so well in the movie, just the whole wedding scene. And then before that, sunrise, sunset, which is like, maybe it's up there with like one of my favorite moments in the movie. It rules, and that's what reminded me of The Godfather. It's like such a beautifully shot,
because it's like nobody the song is all ADR'd over, right? And it's all like, and there is a really interesting thing in this movie, and I mean, I'm gonna have to, like, my next watch, I'm gonna track when Topol's singing his thoughts out loud, and when he's singing and it's internal, because and his mouth isn't moving, you know what I mean? Sunrise Sunset's definitely one of those moments, and what I love about that sequence is it's like a series of close-ups on very young people, very old people in the town, and it's like just by like that quick visual image is reinforcing so much of what the song's about, and like the cycles of life and how these like and all that kind of thing. And it reminded me of the Les Mis movie, which does this very badly, because Tom Hooper is horrible, except he directed Cats, which is accidentally great, despite him. But he does like the big song from Les Mis is at the end. Well, not the big song. One of them is "At the End of the Day, You're Another Day Older." That's like when you first meet like all the poor, like all the ragged, like as an ensemble kind of. And it's a great ensemble, like sweeping, and like you'd think you'd want to have like all these scenes playing out in this like dirty street scene or whatever, like all the things you could do with it, and all he does is just do quick close-ups, like a second and a half at a time, of people like jumping all over the place, no idea what's going on, and that's terrible. But like this is so intentional, because it's like, and he's not doing anything more than just showing the people, but it's like they're also all watching this thing, and I think it's all also enhanced by how much music is part of, well, all faith traditions, but here, the Jewish tradition, and that. So having songs sort of bleed into these religious ceremonies and stuff, and like, or the Sabbath, actually, you would sing that traditionally as a prayer, but having it become a whole song and things like that, it like sort of brings them to life, like in a new way.
For sure, yeah, no, that's a great breakdown. It's just a beautiful. It just reminded me of like a beautiful 70s scene that was like melancholy and beautiful, and I loved it. It felt like something out of The Godfather. Also, Source Force in the chat was saying the baby not being special is also a device to tell you how much time has passed since Act One, right. Which is also like you got to stay on top of that, which is good. That's good. I feel like in the Broadway show the sewing machine would have killed. Or opposed when you watch it in a movie, you're like, well,
I said, it's always tough to. That's always, I think, the toughest part of adapting for a movie musical that's 2 acts into a movie, is always kind of like, how do you navigate that. But I'm glad you brought up that this is like a very 70s movie feeling, because I agree, and I love 70s is like my favorite era of film, I think. And musicals were in a movie musicals were in a really weird place here, actually. They used to be such a surefire kind of thing. There were always big movie musicals, and then those would, as it became more expensive, and there would maybe be less, but there would still always be big movie musicals. And then Mr. Bob Fosse, who's a genius, but he directs Sweet Charity, and it bombs. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the biggest bombs ever, actually, at that time. And they become much more, hands. I don't know if we want to do that, which is funny, because then Bob Fosse largely kind of turns, because then he directs Cabaret. You have Fiddler on the Roof. You have Jesus Christ Superstar, and these are a very different kind of musical. I feel like they do have that kind of 70s sort of grittiness, realism to them. That sort of brings it. I just love this sort of era, and it just bums me out because it seems like all this energy. Maybe it's because Fosse died or something, just like mostly just like kind of peters out, like in terms of this kind of direction that movie musicals could go. And I can't remember the last one like this. And that's all I want. Somebody make a movie musical like this. Maybe it's going to be West Side Story, but I don't know.
Oh, it's great. I mean, yeah, it could be. I feel like that's going to be a little too polished, like we were talking about. But
yeah, well, and my thought, and I don't know if I'm worried about this or excited for this, but I said this when we were watching it on Thursday, that if West Side Story does really well, I expect Fiddler on the Roof to be the next one, for them to say they're doing.
Wow, to come back.
Yeah, I would expect.
Why not? They're going to start bringing them back. I hope that they're good. I was going to say that Teitzel, the older daughter, it's great. Just in Matchmaker, I just have a bunch of notes now that I'm just going to do random.
Dude,
it's great. It's great in Matchmaker when she pretends to be the matchmaker, and like it's funny. It's like a funny moment.
It's classic.
And like you were saying, you just see like you just see like the connection between these sisters, and you're like, oh, these are like, it's like a funny. They're a funny crew, the three of them together, and you see that connection. Also, she came back to play Tevia's wife on Broadway or in a stage production of the show. I was reading a bunch of, she came back and played his...
the list of productions here. Was she wasn't opposite Topol, because that would be really weird when Topol played him again. Let me see.
No, she was, yeah.
Whoa! Right. Hang on.
Yeah, that's
Rosalind
that's
Harris. Oh, wait. Wow. That's incredible. Well, one thing I want to say about the time that this musical came out in 1964, and this is tying into sort of what you were saying, like about sort of the Irish immigrant experience, and hearing so much all the time about from all the areas of the world that people came to America, and hearing people say, they put their lives on their back, and then seeing that literally portrayed here, and hearing people, or like the classic, they refer to the old country or whatever. My grandmother talks about when she was in the old country or whatever. And then this premieres in 1964 in New York City, a huge immigrant town. I mean, like, I can only imagine, like, of course it was a huge hit. Like, it speaks to every single, like, immigrant story, I feel. It's incredible. And so I can only imagine, like, how powerful that was to, like, be a child of immigrants or something and bring your mother or father that actually did this story to come see Fiddler on the Roof, and how powerful that must be to, like, and it really is the first major Broadway work that centers Jewish life, Jewish culture, Jewish characters, and it remains one of the absolute best works in the entire canon, I think.
Oh, for 100%. Susser also sent me a video clip of himself singing a song, which I should have him tweet out, that he used to sing for auditions from this movie. It's the movie's great.
Did he do Wonder of Wonder, Miracle of Miracles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He did do Wonder of Wonder, Miracle of Miracles.
Yep.
I loved it, even with my criticism of the last like 45 minutes or whatever. It still is great. It looks like these people that are living in like these terrible conditions, and also just making the best of life. There's a lot about that movie I love, and also like going into it, I was like, I love If I Were a Rich Man, and I do love it. And I just love any time that Tevye just goes like daddy, like anytime he just says da 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 da
Right.
da da da. Like whenever he does it, it's just great when he's just dancing.
Well, also in the way that it's such
a great body, he's moving perfect.
It's such a great staging because they have him do just enough. Like they don't have him do too much in the number, but he definitely does a few bits, and he travels around in his like barn or whatever with the animals, and it's really fun. Somebody was saying that so there's a recent Broadway revival starring Danny Burstein, I think in 2018, and in that production they were saying that for If I Were a Rich Man, he was seated the entire time, didn't get up from his seat. And I could see how but I could see how that could be really powerful too, because if he's a great natural storyteller, and that's so much of what Tevye is about, and the audience is ready for this song, and if he can hold you in the palm of his hand and stay seated center stage and do it from there, I could see how that could be awesome. Like
I tweeted out a lot, probably a year ago. I tweeted out, "If I were a Flintstone, yabba dabba dabba yabba dabba 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 do." It was probably my best tweet.
I love it.
But I had we never talked about the scary graveyard scene.
Oh my god!
Fun.
That sequence is so great. The Frumacera dream sequence, and it's so funny because it's like the whole idea, like Tevye. It's like it's almost like sitcom-y kind of, that he has to like come up with like this plot. It's so good.
Yeah. By the way, I'm shocked that there was a guy who looks just like me, and my mom said, "Look, I don't think he looks exactly like me, but he does look a lot like me." The beard doesn't help, but
he has the same beard. Basically, is mostly what it is.
One of my notes, and we have the same eyes too. But one of my notes was "Am I laser?" because I thought a laser looked like me, and then I'm another guy in the fucking village.
Well, I also think you're kind of a Tevye, Mitch. I think you're a Tevye in your own way.
That to me is the fucking. Mm-hmm. That's what I want. I want Tevye because he also is like. There's also like something like. So like when he does do his dances, and there's like something so powerful. And
when he's
cool
like,
to it, when he's
"No, Chava," and he's like, I love that. Yeah.
he does so much great arm work.
Right.
There's a ton of great arm work in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean like, it's a really. I'm trying to think of any other facts that I had looked up. I know that Goldie. It was funny because a lot of the actors are still they're doing all right today, and then there were some that passed away like not long after the movie ended, like Mottel and Laser Wolf, and Goldie is like all of them like within like.
And Mottel was young.
Years.
Mottel was young too, so
yeah. And Norma Crane, who plays Goldie, she was married to Herb Sargent, who's worked on SNL. So I thought that was cool. And she's also a great actress in her own right, who's been in a bunch of stuff. And but there's a lot of stuff looking through all of it. There like and I was looking at the Tevye and his daughters. I was kind of looking into that, and the story goes on. Like I read more story, like one of the because they talk about five or six of the daughters, and one of them ends up killing themselves, and then his wife Goldie dies in America. There's like weird shit, like not weird but sad stuff that happens after Fiddler ends that we never really see, and then he does reunite with the third daughter there.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, but they're like because it's all based on these old, these old stories.
Right.
Fictional stories, but I believe.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else I have to say about this movie. So one thing I want to mention is another really cool revival that happened. Oh wait, I was wrong about the Broadway revival. It was before 2018. Actually, I think it was 2015 or something. But there was a off-Broadway revival in 2018. That was all in Yiddish. It was a completely Yiddish production. I think they had subtitles or whatever on the side, so you could get the translation. And it was directed by, speaking of cabaret, the great Joel Grey of the MC and Cabaret. And
all right.
And the last thing I'll say is that the connection between Fiddler on the Roof and Jesus Christ Superstar is the actor who played Mandel. I thought it was Motel. It was actually Mandel, smaller part. He's in like a lot of the crowd scenes. He's got a thick black brown beard, and he's kind of he plays Pontius Pilate. He plays Pontius Pilate in Jesus Christ Superstar. Ooh. He also played Pontius Pilate. He sang that on the original concept album too. So he kind of originated the Pontius Pilate part. And he was the one that while they were filming this was like suggested to Norman Jewison. He's like, Jesus Christ Superstar was like an immediate hit, and it was actually such a big hit that people immediately started doing unlicensed productions everywhere. And so they quickly had to make a staged Broadway production and then a movie so that they could like really lock down the rights to like enforce it. So that they're like, no, you can't do that. I think that's all I've got for Fiddler on the Roof. I do have one more quick thing I want to do with you, Mitch, but if you have any other thoughts on Fiddler, it's good actually. I think we can conclude.
It's good. It is very good. It's great. I really enjoyed it. No, I was trying to look up every fact that I had learned last night, and I can't really find anything else. But I loved it. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
For me, the big moments for me are Sunrise, Sunset, and High Am to Life.
Mm-hmm.
And those two to me are showstoppers.
Mm-hmm.
And just the dancing and everything that goes on in both of those scenes. And then also, like, If I Were a Rich Man and Matchmaker and Tradition are all rule as well. So
yeah, what a great start.
Like, I think it is. I think it's top heavy. That's something that Susser said, that it's a little bit top heavy, but
front
just
loaded
a great show
bit,
all
yeah.
around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, front loaded. Yep. But I mean, overall, just a great show.
Yeah, and the one thing I just want to touch on again, and I think we've mentioned it, but just like how beautiful it looks, like the scenery, like how much he just like shows the whole, like the use of like depth and like having just like the scenery that goes on forever, or like the intentional use of the horizon line, like the last shot of them walking across, like along the horizon with the fiddler following them playing. Really gorgeous movie. If it's a blind spot for you like it was for me, it's on Netflix and Amazon Prime right now. So go check it out. All right, Mitch.
I'll say this, that just Yugoslavia, you can tell that at some points where they're just like you're seeing their breath for real. You're like, oh man, this is
it actually is cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great, but I read also that they use like shaved marble for stone, so that I guess at some points they were filming and it wasn't cold, but it looks like the setting is just so great. You know, locations did a great job because it just looks so realistic.
And that's like sort of the most important thing, is for this place to feel like such a real place and a real community, so that you feel absolutely devastated to see it destroyed in the end.
Yeah.
And it's great. All right.
It is.
Okay, so last thing I want to do, this is going to be quick, but I do have another quiz. We're going to play Complete the Show Tune, because, you know, there's a lot of show tunes that are actually big cultural touch points, and I think that you will do better on this quiz than you might expect. Although I will say there was a recent, I know this is a common experience for anybody that listens to podcasts, but you know, when you're listening to a podcast and you're like, what? You're like going crazy. And you did a recent quiz that it was hard for me. It was a hard listen, but it's okay. It's all right. I mean, I understand. You're doing these podcasts all the time, Mitch. I don't want to like put undue pressure on you.
Fucking give it to me. I'll take any pressure.
So complete the lyric. Here we go.
But wait, hold on. I have two last notes.
Yes.
One is that I just want to say that when Laser thinks that Tevye is talking about when Tevye thinks Laser is talking about his cow.
Right. That's a funny scene.
And Laser thinks he's talking about his daughters. That's a great scene. And then also
another kind of like classic sitcom kind of thing. It's great.
I when I was younger, I had a big crush on daughter number 2 back in the day.
I agree, she's the hottest one. I agree. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's just back when I was a child. I had a judge. I won't judge, but I when I was a little boy, I had a big
their middle daughter.
I remember having a crush on her. Yeah. As a little dinkus back in the day.
You know.
But let's hear it. Let's get into this quiz.
Okay, so finish the show tune for me. Here we go.
Okay. Oh fuck! I gotta do so bad.
I hate every ape I see, from chimpan A to chimpanzee. Oh, they'll
never make a monkey out of me.
1 for 1. Great. All right. Here's the next show tune. Were you sent here by the devil? No, good sir. I'm
on the level.
2 for 2. All right.
Wow.
Can't you hear me yella? You're putting me through hella.
Stella!
It's the Streetcar Musical. All right. Okay. This is the whole prompt. Guys and dolls, we're just...
I don't know this one. Damn it.
Oh, we got the first one. We're just a bunch of crazy guys and dolls, of course, from the Denner Theater production, Guys and Dolls.
That's right.
They are all.
Damn, I was doing so good.
They're all Simpsons songs. So, okay, here's this one. Baby on board, how I'd adore that.
Ooh, I know this. Baby on board, how I'd adore. I'm not gonna get it.
That sign on my car's window pane.
That's it.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the hard ones. Okay. All right. How about this one? We're the lace on the nightgown, the point after touchdown. Yes, we
put the spring in Springfield. I know that one.
All right. Okay. I'm checking in, he's checking in, I'm checking in, checking in. No more pills or alcohol, no more pot or Demerol.
Oh, I don't know the rest of it, but I love this. I love this one.
No more stinking fun at all. All right. Okay, we only have a few more, just a few more.
I love it.
Like my loafers, former gophers. It was that or...
Ah, shit. Like my gopher. And I know this. I know it's Mr. Burns, and it's the Dalmatians episode, basically, the Greyhounds.
Yeah.
Like my... loafers, former gophers. Sing it again.
Like my loafers, former gophers. It was that or skin my chauffeurs.
Oh,
that one.
I should have known. Fucking Burns. Skin his chauffeurs.
Okay. Oh, this one. It's a complete the lyric where it's in the middle. It's in the middle of the phrase. So, who controls the British crown? Who keeps the blank down? We do. We do. What do they keep down?
Oh fuck! I know what it is too. This is the one that's gonna get me the most mad. Because like the tip of my tongue. Hold on. Who controls the British crown? Fuck! I forget. In my mind now, all I can think of is like inflation, but it's I forget what it is. It's like I know it's something. I know it's gonna make me mad when you say it, but go ahead, say it, because I'm gonna.
The
be
metric
mad.
system. Who keeps the metric system down? All right, this is the last one. Sorry, Mitch.
No, it's all right.
I did kind of put these in sort of hard order because it's
the
like
Stonecutters.
Yeah,
the Stonecutters. Yeah, no, this is great. I truly love it.
I almost did the Steve Gutenberg line, but okay. And this is the last one. I'm not going to do the voice.
Wow.
Who needs the quickie mart? Now here's the tricky part. Oh, won't you rhyme with me? Okay, wait. Who needs the quickie mart? Their floors are sticky mart. They made Dad sicky mart. Let's hurl a bricky mart. And then Homer sings.
The quickie mart is really dope.
Yes! He gets it. That's it. Mitch, this has been the best. Thanks so much for being here. Everybody listen to Doughboys.
Thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah. Anything else before we leave it for today?
No, yeah, listen to Doughboys. The Tomorrow War movie I'm in comes out on Amazon on July 2nd. Check that out.
Yeah, I'm excited. This trailer's looking real good.
Hell yeah.
All right, everybody. We love you.
And go watch Fiddler on the Roof on Amazon Prime. It rules.
Absolutely. And come check me out. Next week, we're also going to be at a different time. I actually don't know what time. So just look out for my Twitter. Demi Lardner is like one of the funniest fucking people. And no offense, Mitch. And she's, and it's going to be a great show. We're talking the Pirates of Penzance movie. Have you seen that movie?
Ooh, no, I've never seen it.
Kevin Kline, Angela Lansbury, Linda Rodstadt. Ooh, talk about a hottie. Ooh, boy. Everybody get ready for that. And we will see ya next time. And
see ya.
Goodbye.